Good evening, and welcome to our special breaking news bulletin. We find ourselves standing on the absolute precipice of a truly historic moment in the world of professional sports today. The collective gaze of the entire tennis universe has pivoted sharply toward the sun-drenched, pristine hard courts of Doha, Qatar. However, for the first time in what feels like an eternity, the headlines are not solely fixated on the usual suspects or the established titans of the tour. We are not just talking about the Iga Swiatek's or the Aryna Sabalenkas of the world dominating the conversation this week, as is the typical routine. Instead, the press room is absolutely roaring with chatter about a 20-year-old phenomenon hailing from the Philippines who has just completely smashed through the glass ceiling of the WTA Tour. We are, of course, referring to the one and only pride of Southeast Asia, Alexandra Eala. The live updates pouring out of the Middle East at this very moment are nothing short of electric. The entire region, and specifically everyone on the ground in Qatar, is reeling in a state of absolute amazement. The official draw has just been released. The brackets are locked in stone, and the storyline has dramatically transformed from a standard tournament appearance into the potential for a Cinderella story of legendary proportions. This is a developing story breaking right here and right now on your screens. We can confirm that Alexandra has officially punched her ticket into the main draw of the Qatar Total Energies Open, a prestigious WTA 1000 level event. But wait, because that is barely scratching the surface of this massive development. Securing that spot is merely the very tip of the iceberg in this unfolding drama. The true headline, the development that has sent massive shockwaves rippling through the tennis community and has Filipino supporters in Doha buzzing with anticipation, is the specific manner of her entry and the daunting yet thrilling path that awaits her. We are staring down the barrel of a tournament draw that features not just one but two formidable Grand Slam finalists lurking right there in her immediate quarter. This is a veritable baptism by fire. It represents the exact moment where raw, youthful potential crashes headfirst into the brutal reality of the professional women's tour. Let us take a moment to break down precisely why this development is such a massive jolt to the system. For years, we have observed Alexandra Eala on the daily grind, watching her pay her dues. We have witnessed her fighting tooth and nail through the obscurity and physical toll of the grueling ITF circuit. We have seen her battle through the exhausting qualifying rounds in major hubs like Miami and Madrid, scraping for every single ranking point, hoping for wild cards, and praying for just one opportunity to share the court with the world's elite. We have been there for the grit we have witnessed, the heartbreak and tears, and we have tracked the slow, methodical climb up the professional ladder. However, today marks a complete and total paradigm shift in that long-running narrative. Today, for the very first time in her blossoming career, Alex steps into a WTA 1000 tournament, not as a charity case or a lucky wildcard recipient, but strictly on the strength of her own merit. This surprise is reverberating throughout Doha thanks to a spectacular performance in Abu Dhabi just a few days ago. There she rocketed to a career-high ranking of world number 38, a feat that, when combined with a sudden wave of withdrawals from top-tier stars, changed the landscape entirely. Eala has completely bypassed the exhausting qualifying rounds. She has arrived at the big show. She is straight into the main draw without hitting a single ball in the prelims. And yet the tennis gods, in their infinite wisdom and cruelty, have dropped her into one of the most stacked, dangerous, and drama-filled sections of the entire bracket. The headlines practically write themselves at this point. Two Grand Slam finalists are on a direct collision course. This refers to the absolute gauntlet forming around Eala's debut. Although she opens her campaign against a qualifier, do not be fooled for a second that match is a dangerous trap in its own right. Looming immediately in the second round is a potential nightmare scenario against Karolina Muchova, the 2023 French Open finalist, and arguably one of the craftiest, most dangerous tacticians on the planet. And even if she manages to miraculously survive that tactical test, the road does not get any easier. Danielle Collins, the fiery American powerhouse and Australian Open finalist, could be waiting in the wings to ambush her. This is far from a soft landing. This is not a polite welcome to the tour handshake. This is a head-on collision course with the absolute elite hierarchy of women's tennis. Live reports from the ground indicate the atmosphere in Doha is reaching a fever pitch. You have to understand the unique cultural demographics at play here. The Filipino expatriate community in the Middle East is massive, incredibly passionate, and starving for a legitimate sporting hero to call their own. When Eala walks out onto that court this coming Sunday, it will not feel like a neutral venue in foreign territory. It is going to feel like a raucous home game back in Manila. The shock factor isn't purely about the tennis. It is about the sudden realization that the Qatar Open has inadvertently transformed into the epicenter of a passionate national movement. We already witnessed a glimpse of this intensity in Abu Dhabi, the flags waving, the chanting crowds, and an energy that rivaled a heated Davis Cup tie. Now take that raw energy and multiply it by the prestige of a WTA 1000 event, the second highest tier of tournaments globally, sitting just below the Grand Slams. We are currently witnessing the perfect convergence of hard-earned preparation and sudden golden opportunity. Eala's performance in Abu Dhabi, specifically that miraculous comeback against Alexandra Eala, where she clawed her way back from a set-down, proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that she possesses the mental fortitude to handle the forte big stage. But make no mistake, a WTA 1000 is an entirely different beast altogether. The ranking points are significantly larger. The prize money is life-changing, and the margin for error is effectively non-existent. So, why is the mood in Qatar so shocked? Because nobody anticipated this specific scenario playing out. The withdrawals of heavy hitters like Jessica Pegula and Madison Keys happened so suddenly. The decision by Aryna Sabalenka to opt out was a total curveball. These absences created a competitive vacuum, a sudden opening in the draw that Eala, positioned perfectly at her new ranking, slid right into. It is the specific kind of luck that you have to earn through blood, sweat, and tears. It is the kind of destiny that feels like it was written in the stars. But let us be clear, the shock also stems from the daunting reality of her opposition. To have Grand Slam finalists surrounding a tournament debutante is the ultimate test of skill and nerve. It is nothing less than a trial by combat. This introduction serves as your massive wake-up call. If you thought the Australian Open marked the end of the tennis excitement for the early season, you were dead wrong. The Middle East swing has just delivered its most compelling and dramatic storyline of 2026. 20 years of age and already carrying the heavy hopes of an entire nation on her back. She has secured a history-making direct ticket to the big leagues, but the tennis gods have handed her a bracket that is nothing short of a total nightmare. The burning question is not just if she can survive the blistering heat in Doha, it is whether she has enough in the tank to shock the tennis world all over again. Or are we on the verge of watching the seasoned grit of multiple Grand Slam veterans snuff out this underdog fairy tale before the first ball is even struck? You had better strap yourselves in tight because this is going to be a bumpy ride. We are going to take this narrative apart, brick by brick, examining every conceivable angle of this developing saga. We are breaking down the cold, unyielding mathematics that fueled her rocket ship rise up the global world rankings. We will be clinically dissecting the tactical profiles and distinct game styles of the heavy hitters standing in her path. Furthermore, we are taking a deep dive through the archives of Filipino tennis history to truly grasp the monumental scale of this moment for the sport across Southeast Asia. And naturally, we are tackling the elephant in the room, the single biggest question keeping fans awake at night. Is Alexandra Eala truly prepared to go toe-to-toe with the elite and establish herself as a bona fide dangerous contender at the punishing WTA 1000 level? The pristine hard courts in Doha are primed. The gladiators have entered the arena ready for war. And make no mistake, the eyes of the entire sporting globe are locked in on this showdown. Let us dive straight into the deep end of this analysis without wasting another second. I have got the breaking headlines fresh off the press and the critical segments you absolutely need to hear. We are crafting a comprehensive broadcast quality breakdown right here, right now, so let us commence this deep dive immediately. To truly grasp the gravity of this situation, we have to peel back the layers of the high-stakes drama that just played out in Abu Dhabi. If you do not understand the chaotic context of the last 72 hours, then there is simply no way you can fully appreciate the sheer magnitude of what is about to go down in Qatar. We have to talk about that invisible, intangible force that rules sports momentum. In the cutthroat ecosystem of professional tennis, momentum is not just a fleeting feeling. It is a tangible, spendable currency. Frankly, it is worth more than the prize money checks and vastly more valuable than any corporate endorsement deal you could sign. Momentum is that razor-thin margin between a ball clipping the net cord and falling back on your side for a loss, or kissing that same tape and trickling over for a heartbreaking lucky winner. Alexandra Eala is touching down in Doha, riding a tidal wave of momentum so massive, it is frankly terrifying for any opponent unlucky enough to spot her name next to theirs on the official draw sheet. Let us hit the rewind button for a quick second and look back at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi. Open a pivotal WTA 500 event that set the stage for everything. Ideally, this was supposed to be just the precursor, a mere warm-up act for the main event. But for Eala, it transformed into a career-defining battlefield. She walked into that tournament with a massive chip on her shoulder, desperate to prove her ranking was not some statistical anomaly. She walked out of that arena, having proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is a warrior of the absolute highest order capable of hanging with the best. That clash against Alexandra Sasnovich is the kind of match coaches will be screening for their students in tennis academies for decades to come. Eala was down on the canvas. For all intents and purposes, she was done and dusted. The scoreboard looked absolutely grim for her supporters. She had dropped the first set 2-6 and looked completely lost out there. She was struggling to handle the pace, and she had zero answers for the crushing depth of Sasnovich's ground strokes. The critics were already drafting their "told you so" tweets and preparing the obituaries for her tournament run. But then, in the blink of an eye, the energy on the court shifted dramatically. We witnessed that signature Eala grit come bubbling to the surface. She did not just try to muscle the ball and hit it harder like a rookie. She started playing high IQ tennis. She started hitting it smarter. She deployed that lefty spin, utilizing that wicked southpaw advantage to carve up sharp angles and open the court wide. She clawed her way back, fighting tooth and nail for every point to snatch the second set 6-4. And then came the decider. A nerve-shredding 7-6 tiebreak victory in a third set that pushed the match duration to nearly 3 grueling hours. That was not just a win in the column. That match was a chemical catalyst for her belief. It was the spark that lit the bonfire. Even though she eventually bowed out in the quarterfinals to Ekaterina Alexandrova, a woman currently playing tennis at a scary top 10 caliber, the damage to the established tour hierarchy was already done in the best possible way. The ranking points she managed to accrue from that phenomenal quarterfinal run catapulted her live ranking all the way up to number 38 in the world. 38. Take a second and let that number truly sink in and resonate. For an athlete hailing from the Philippines, a nation with an incredibly rich sporting culture but historically limited success in top-tier singles tennis, reaching number 38 is stratospheric. That is rarefied air, where only the elite breathe. And it is precisely this number, this magical integer, that unlocked the golden gates to Qatar. Now let us transition to the actual mechanics of this shocking entry into the Qatar Total Energies Open. Under normal circumstances, a player ranked 38th would be on the bubble for a seeded position or comfortably sitting in the main draw of a standard tour event. But at a WTA 1000, these are the mini-slams, folks. The playing fields at this level are incredibly dense and packed with world-class talent from top to bottom. The cutoff line for direct entry is often brutal and unforgiving. However, the shock our headline refers to comes from a perfect storm of circumstances colliding at just the right moment in 2026. First, we have to talk about the high-profile withdrawals. We have received confirmed reports that the world number 1, Aryna Sabalenka, has opted out of the tournament. We also know that the American powerhouses Madison Keys and Jessica Pegula have withdrawn their names from the list. These are absolute heavy hitters we are talking about here. These are the elite players who consume spots at the very pinnacle of the draw. When they step out of the line, everyone else automatically shifts up the ladder to fill the void. Eala, sitting pretty at that new career-high ranking of 38, was the prime beneficiary of this massive shuffle. And this is a critical distinction we have to make crystal clear. Alex Eala did not ask nicely for a spot in this tournament. She took it. In previous years at the Miami Open or the Madrid Open, we celebrated when she was gifted a wildcard entry. A wildcard is essentially a gift wrapped in a bow. It is an invitation based on potential marketing value or strong agency connections. It is a polite, "Welcome to the party, please do not break anything" gesture. A direct entry. No, a direct entry is a bold statement. It screams, "I belong here." It says, "My points prove I belong here, and my hard-earned results say I belong here without question." This marks her official debut as a rightful card-carrying member of the WTA 1000 elite field. The psychological shift that causes for a player is absolutely massive. She isn't playing with house money or handouts anymore. She is gambling with her own earnings now. But we cannot celebrate just yet. We must look at the treacherous draw. The aspect of the news involving 2 Grand Slam finalists is exactly where the excitement curdles into anxiety. The draw ceremony in Doha was a tense, nail-biting affair. And when Eala's name was finally pulled from the hat, it landed in a section of the bracket that can only be described as a lethal minefield designed to break spirits. Let us examine the immediate hurdle standing directly in front of her. Round 1, a qualifier. On paper, sure, this sounds manageable. "Oh, it is just a qualifier," the casual fan might shrug and say. But you have to realize in a WTA 1000 event, a qualifier is often a top 50 talent who just had a bad month or a former top 20 superstar clawing their way back from injury hell. The challengers storming out of the qualifying rounds here in Doha are not just warmed up, they are tempered like steel and absolutely battle-tested warriors. Having already survived two brutal high-stakes encounters on these very same courts, they hold a massive edge. They are completely dialed into the gusty wind patterns, the specific court speed, and the blinding glare of the stadium floodlights. On the flip side, Alex Eala is entering this war zone completely cold, forced to instantly find her rhythm against an opponent who is already redlining. In professional tennis, facing a qualifier in the opening round is often far more dangerous than playing a seeded star. Because her opponent has already locked in their timing, the pressure on Eala to perform from the first ball is suffocating. However, if she can navigate her way through this initial trap, the potential storyline could rival any cinematic underdog script. Looming in the shadows of the draw for a potential second-round blockbuster is a nightmare matchup against the incredibly crafty and dangerous Karolina Muchova. We must pause to acknowledge the brilliance of Muchova, the Czech technician who stormed her way to the Roland Garros final in 2023 and pushed world number 1 Iga Swiatek to her absolute physical and mental limit. Muchova is the polar opposite of a one-dimensional ball striker. She is a virtuoso on the court who changes pace with ease, and fearlessly charges the net to finish points early. She utilizes a lethal drop shot to break up the flow of the game. And for a rising talent like Eala, who prefers a steady, rhythmic baseline exchange, Muchova represents the ultimate tactical disruptor. Her entire game plan is built on chaos and discomfort, forcing her rivals to hit desperate shots from awkward areas of the court they would never choose to visit. A second-round meeting would serve as the ultimate final exam for Eala's tennis IQ, challenging her to solve the complex riddle of Muchova in a fascinating clash of lefty intensity versus pure all-court versatility. Scanning even further down this incredibly stacked bracket, we find the fiery American Danielle Collins, the finalist from the 2022 Australian Open. Collins is the complete antithesis of Muchova's artistic style. She obliterates the ball with ferocious flat power that stays low and skids through the court like a missile. She roars after winning big points, fights for every single millimeter of the court, and transforms a standard tennis match into an intense, gritty street fight. So, if Eala manages to survive the chess match with Muchova, she might immediately run headfirst into the unbridled fury of Collins, which is exactly why the pundits in Qatar are already predicting absolute chaos in this quarter. It is not just about Eala's arrival on the big stage. It is the sheer overwhelming density of world-class talent waiting to explode in her specific section of the draw. The tournament directors could not have scripted a more compelling and dramatic narrative for this week, even if they had hired a team of Hollywood writers. You have the emerging Filipino icon thrown directly into the lion's den, with the established European tacticians and the heavy-hitting power giants of the American game. We also need to factor in the unique variables of the venue, as the Khalifa International Tennis and Squash Complex in Doha is notorious for being a tricky place to compete. Although these are technically hard courts, they can play surprisingly slow and gritty, especially during the evening matches when the heavy desert humidity begins to descend. The wind is a constant chaotic factor in Doha, often swirling unpredictably inside the stadium bowl and wreaking havoc on high ball tosses and spin-heavy shots. Eala is a left-hander who relies heavily on a topspin-loaded forehand to dictate play, and that specific shot can be vulnerable when the wind starts gusting. However, the wind can also be her greatest weapon. If she can harness her lefty slider out wide on the ad court, using the breeze to pull the ball away from her opponent, she can dominate the geometry of the point. Conversely, if a gust catches her ball toss at the wrong split second, we could witness a string of frustrating double faults that could unravel her service games entirely. These microscopic tactical details will ultimately decide the match, but let us zoom out to analyze the massive financial and ranking stakes attached to this debut. This business aspect of the sport is often ignored by casual viewers, yet it remains the essential engine that keeps a professional career moving forward. The prize money on the table at a WTA 1000 event is absolutely staggering. Just for showing up in the round of 64, the paycheck often exceeds $10,000 to $15,000. But securing a victory, just a single win in the main draw of a tournament at this prestigious level, changes the financial equation entirely. A win puts tens of thousands of dollars in the bank, and perhaps more importantly, awards between 35 and 65 ranking points, depending on the round. For Eala, every single point is pure gold right now. While she defends points from past campaigns, she is currently in a perfect position to make a massive net gain. She has a completely clean slate with 0 points to defend from Qatar last year because she did not compete in this tournament in 2025. This scenario is what we call pure profit in the rankings game, meaning every match she wins here in Doha creates a direct addition to her cumulative total. If she manages to secure 2 match wins, she rockets herself toward the top 30, which is the coveted territory for seeding at Grand Slams and the ultimate goal. If Alex Eala can depart from Doha holding a top 32 ranking, she will enter the French Open and Wimbledon as a seeded player. That distinction is crucial because it means she effectively avoids facing giants like Swiatek and Sabalenka until the 3rd round, which is exactly how you build a deep Grand Slam run. It all starts here. It begins in Doha, but the immense pressure on her shoulders is undeniable, specifically regarding what we call the Filipino effect. Wherever Alex Eala travels, the crowd faithfully follows. Reports from her stint in Abu Dhabi indicated that the stadium was packed with 70% Filipino fans. The chanting, the waving of flags, and the deafening noise created an electric atmosphere, and we know the Filipino expatriate community here in Doha is even larger. This massive support system is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the backing is incredible and can lift a player's spirit when they are down. It serves to intimidate the opponent, but, on the other hand, the weight of expectation is incredibly heavy, where every unforced error draws a collective gasp of disappointment from the stands. Every missed break point feels like a national tragedy for the fans, and Eala is still learning how to carry this massive emotional backpack while performing at an elite level. She is maturing right before our eyes, transforming from just a talented tennis player into a bona fide national ambassador. We also need to place this moment within the broader history of Asian tennis, looking back at how Li Na from China kicked down doors for the region. We witnessed Naomi Osaka from Japan rise to dominate the global stage, and now the Southeast Asian region is desperately searching for its own world champion. Thailand had the legendary Tamarine Tanasugarn, and Indonesia has produced stars in the doubles discipline, but the Philippines has been waiting decades for a single superstar. Alex Eala is answering that call, and her debut in a WTA 1000 main draw marks a historic landmark moment for Southeast Asian tennis. Let us hit the rewind button for a second and really zoom in on that bombshell headline regarding the 2 Grand Slam finalists hiding in the weeds of this bracket. Why exactly does that specific phrasing carry such a massive punch in our storyline today? It stands as the ultimate proof of the ridiculous depth we are witnessing on the WTA Tour right now. The era of the cakewalk draw is officially dead and buried. There are absolutely 0 free passes anymore. Rewind to the golden age of Serena Williams' dominance, and the early rounds were basically just a glorified warm-up session. But fast forward to 2026, and the player ranked number 50 in the world can completely dismantle the world number 5 on any given afternoon. When you have bona fide Grand Slam finalists like Muchova and Collins, unseated and lurking like landmines, waiting for a newcomer like Eala to step on them, it demonstrates just how savage and cutthroat this landscape truly is. Make no mistake, Eala is not stepping onto the court for a friendly developmental league match or some lower-tier challenger event any longer. She is diving headfirst into a shark tank teeming with apex predators who smell blood. I want to take a serious minute to deconstruct Eala's technical game based on that stunning campaign in Abu Dhabi to gauge how it measures up against this elite field in Doha. Historically speaking, her forehand has always served as her heavy artillery, the primary weapon she uses to dictate the flow of the point. That signature left-handed whip generates massive revolutions, and on these gritty Doha hard courts, that ball is going to bite the surface and kick up violently well above her opponent's shoulder height. This high-bouncing trajectory is absolutely vital when locking horns with a crafty technician like Muchova, who loves to employ the slice to keep the ball skidding low. If Eala can consistently keep that ball heavy, buried deep, and kicking high to the Muchova backhand wing, she effectively neutralizes that slice game completely. And we really need to discuss the evolution of her own backhand. It used to be merely a rallying shot to keep her alive in the point, but now she is flattening it out and ripping it down the line with serious authority. We witnessed flashes of this offensive brilliance against Sasnovich. She was stepping well inside the baseline and cracking backhand winners. She is going to need to bring that same level of aggression here, although the serve remains the solitary big question mark hovering over her head. Standing at 5'9", she is not exactly the tallest giant on the tour, which means she has to rely on surgical placement rather than raw, overpowering speed to get the job done. When you are staring down aggressive returners like Danielle Collins, who literally camps out on the baseline, daring you to miss so she can obliterate a second serve, Eala's first serve percentage has to be absolutely sky-high. If she drops below 60% on those first serves, she is going to find herself in deep trouble. The real shocker here would be if she can manage to hold serve comfortably against these world-class attackers. Beyond the mechanics, we have to factor in the coaching pedigree and the machine behind her. The Rafa Nadal Academy has been her training ground and her fortress for years. They instill a very specific, recognizable brand of tennis. It is about pure intensity, grueling physicality, and an absolute refusal to yield. You can clearly see the Nadal DNA imprinted on every aspect of her style. It is the fighting spirit, the constant fist pumps, and the stubborn refusal to ever tank a set. That warrior mentality is going to be her single greatest asset in a massive WTA 1000 event like this. These tournaments are marathons, not sprints. They are long, they are exhausting, and the brutal schedule demands you play day after day against fresh opponents. You have to be an absolute physical beast to survive. Eala's fitness levels in Abu Dhabi were nothing short of impressive. She went the distance in 3 sets and still looked fresh in the decider. She is going to need every ounce of that gas tank in the stifling heat of Doha. Now let us pivot and re-examine the situation regarding the qualifier opponent. We do not have a confirmed name locked in just yet, as the qualifying rounds are wrapping up as we speak, but the psychology of playing a qualifier is always a fascinating dynamic. Qualifiers possess a specific kind of match toughness. They have already survived the Hunger Games of the qualifying draw just to get here. They are sharp, whereas Eala has been sitting on a few days of practice rest. In this sport, rest can sometimes equal rust. The first 20 minutes of her opening round match are going to be absolutely critical to shake off the cobwebs. She needs to come out of the gates firing on all cylinders. She cannot afford a sluggish start like she displayed against Sasnovich, because a qualifier with momentum will not let her back into the match, and Muchova certainly would close the door instantly. So, what does the absolute best-case scenario look like right here for our rising star? The dream scenario is that Eala wins her first round banks, the ranking points, and sets up a blockbuster televised showdown against Muchova on center court. Win or lose, that level of global exposure is priceless. It puts her directly on the primetime feed in front of millions of viewers around the globe. It proves to the world she belongs on the same stage as the finalists. Now look at the worst-case scenario, a first-round exit. Is that a total failure? Absolutely not. She made the main draw directly on her own merit. She earned the paycheck, and more importantly, she earned the high-level experience. But knowing the competitor Alexandra Eala, she is not flying to Doha for a participation trophy. She is there to win matches. The excitement back home in the Philippines is palpable. Social media is trending off the charts. Watch parties are being organized in real time. This is the unifying power of sports. One girl, one racket, bringing millions of people together. The shock value in the headline is actually a shock of pure joy. It is the sudden realization that we have officially arrived on the big stage. As we scan the rest of this loaded draw, we see names like Swiatek. We see Rybakina. These are the absolute titans that Eala is now chasing by standing in this main draw. She is now orbiting in their universe. She is sharing the same locker room space. She is eating alongside them in the player dining area. That proximity to greatness inevitably breeds greatness. You watch how Iga prepares. You watch Rybakina's stretching routine. You absorb that elite professionalism by osmosis. This week in Doha is essentially a university education for Alexandra Eala, an accelerated masterclass in what it takes to be a top-tier professional. So, to recap this deep dive analysis, we have direct acceptance into the main draw thanks to her meteoric ranking rise, and some key withdrawals. This is a historic first for her career. Her form is lethal coming off that hot quarterfinal run in Abu Dhabi, so confidence is sky-high. The draw is a shock bracket featuring heavy hitters like Grand Slam finalists Muchova and Collins directly in her path, raising the stakes to the maximum. There are critical ranking points on the table to push for a Grand Slam seed, plus the pride of an entire nation riding on her shoulders. It is the perfect storm. The wind in Doha might be blowing in her favor, but the waves she has to surf are massive. And that brings us to the conclusion of this deep dive analysis. However, this story is truly just getting started. Over the next few days, we are going to find out exactly what Alexandra Eala is made of. We have celebrated her potential for years now. We watched her dominate the junior circuit, lifting those Grand Slam trophies in New York and Melbourne. But let's be real, junior titles are just the prologue. This right here, this is the main chapter. Bridging the colossal gap between dominating the junior circuit and surviving the Shark Tank of the Professional Women's Tennis Association Tour is widely regarded as the single most brutal leap in all of competitive athletics. We have seen an endless parade of gifted phenoms crash and burn against that wall, but Alex Eala displays a rare breed of resilience fueled by a grinder's mentality and icy composure under fire that suggests she possesses exactly what is required to scale this mountain. The 2026 Qatar Total Energies Open is shaping up to be far more than just another calendar entry for this young sensation. It marks a pivotal line in the sand for her career trajectory and ranking aspirations. From the second she crosses the white paint for her opening round clash, she enters a ruthless ecosystem where she has shed the cloak of obscurity and transformed into the prize scalp every opponent is desperate to claim. Seasoned veterans now view her as a legitimate threat, meaning they will unleash their full arsenal against her. And looking at the bracket, a duo of battle-tested Grand Slam finalists are already lurking poised to push her physical and psychological endurance to the absolute breaking point. We need to send a massive signal to the legion of Filipino supporters tuning in right now. Get loud in the comments and on social media, because that electric passion you bring is a tangible force that transcends the broadcast feed and fuels the fire on court. The atmosphere in Abu Dhabi was absolutely magnetic, and we are banking on that same explosive energy to erupt in Doha, effectively turning the Middle East swing into a de facto home tournament to rattle her international opposition. You are going to want to keep your notifications on and your eyes glued to this specific quarter of the draw, because the matchups forming here are guaranteeing absolute carnage on the hard courts. While the mainstream experts are busy crowning powerhouses like Muchova or Collins as the inevitable victors, you would be incredibly foolish to overlook the rising phenomenon from the Philippines, who thrives on shattering expectations. Eala has mastered the art of flipping the script, transforming what looks like a potential upset into a dominant declaration of arrival, showcasing the sheer volatility and excitement that defines the modern women's game. It is inside the high-pressure cauldron of these WTA 1000 tournaments where future legends are forged, and we are watching a genuine generational shift unfold in real time, with Alex spearheading this fearless new wave of talent. Our commitment is to keep you plugged into the pulse of the tournament, delivering instant analysis on every rally, every controversially close call, and every significant development the moment it hits the wire. Whether she raises her arms in triumph or faces a tough exit, we will be right here to break down the technical nuances of the win or dissect the crucial takeaways from the loss as she continues her ascent. One fact is undeniable. The global tennis community has officially snapped out of its slumber and recognized her threat level, setting the stage for Qatar to host the next explosive chapter of her rapid evolution. The worldwide fan base is mobilized, and the court is primed for high-octane drama, so we truly appreciate you sticking with us for this comprehensive preview of what lies ahead. We have traversed a vast landscape in this update, navigating everything from the intricate ranking scenarios of the 2026 season to the strategic adjustments needed against slice defenders. But a narrative of this magnitude commands nothing less than a full-spectrum analysis.